This is Rome, the richest city the world had ever seen. And somewhere inside it lived the richest philosopher who ever lived. His name was Seneca. He had gold. He had land. He had the ear of an emperor. He had everything a man could want. And yet, in his final years, he spent his nights writing about one strange idea, that none of it was ever enough. This is his story, but Seneca did not begin with gold. He was born far from Rome, in Spain, in a quiet city called Cordoba. He was a sickly child. His lungs were weak. Some nights, he could barely breathe. As a young man, the pain grew so deep that he thought about ending his life. He did not. Something held him here. He wanted to understand one thing, how a man should live. So he came to Rome, the center of the world. Here, words were power. In the courts and the Senate, a sharp tongue could lift a man higher than gold ever could. Seneca learned to speak, and he learned to think. He studied the Stoics, old teachers who asked a simple question: what is truly yours, and what can be taken from you? He did not know it yet. That question would follow him for life. His words made him famous, maybe too famous. The Emperor Caligula heard him speak and burned with envy. He ordered Seneca killed. A single voice saved him. Someone told the emperor not to bother. The sickly philosopher was dying anyway. He would not last long, so they let him live. And Seneca learned a cold truth that day. Under a tyrant, even your gift can become a death sentence. Then came the fall. A new emperor, a whisper of scandal. Seneca was accused of a crime with the emperor's own niece. Guilty or not, it did not matter. He was sent away to a cold and empty island called Corsica. For 8 long years, he lived far from Rome, far from power, far from everything he had built. But he had time now, time to write, time to ask what a man really needs. And then, just as suddenly, Rome called him back. A powerful woman named Agrippina needed him. She had a son, a boy who would one day rule the empire. She wanted the finest mind in Rome to shape him. The boy's name was Nero. Seneca returned. He left the silence of the island behind. He walked back into the heart of power. He did not know he was walking toward both his fortune and his ruin. For time, it worked. The boy became emperor at just 16, and Seneca stood beside him. With another man, Burrus, he helped guide the empire. These were good years. Rome was ruled with a steady hand, and Seneca, the quiet philosopher, was now one of the most powerful men alive. But power came with something else. Money. More money than he had ever dreamed of. The wealth came like a river. Gifts from the emperor. Estates across the empire. Vineyards, villas, and gold beyond counting. They say his fortune reached 300 million sesterces. He even lent money to distant Britain. The sickly boy from Spain was now the richest philosopher Rome had ever known. He had won the game. And this is where his real struggle begins. But not everyone admired him. They began to whisper. How can a man teach about simple living? They asked while sleeping on gold. How can a Stoic own 500 tables of ivory and cedar? The richest man in Rome, preaching about contentment. To his enemies, it was a joke. To Seneca, it was the hardest question of his life. And he chose to answer it in writing. He did not hide. He wrote a book. We call it On the Happy Life. In it, he faced his critics directly. I am not a wise man, he admitted. I am not perfect. I'm still learning, like you. But hear me, he said. There's a difference between owning wealth and being owned by it. His answer was simple. The wise man does not love money, he wrote. He does not welcome it into his heart. He only lets it into his house. Wealth is allowed to come, but it is never the master. Take it all away tomorrow, and the wise man would not flinch. He would walk out the same man he walked in. That was the test, and Seneca meant to pass it. And still, the wealth was real. He owned villas across Italy, gardens, vineyards, lakes, tables worth more than a soldier earned in a lifetime. He lived inside the very luxury he warned against. Some called him a hypocrite, but Seneca saw it differently. The danger, he believed, was not in having things. The danger was in needing them, in not being able to let them go. Think about your own life for a second. The home you want, the number in your account that would finally feel like enough. Now ask the harder question. If it vanished tomorrow, who would you be? Seneca held his fortune the way you hold sand. Loosely. open-handed, because the moment you close your fist, he knew, the thing you own begins to own you. So, what is enough? Seneca had more than almost any man alive, and it had not answered the question. He had learned something the poor and the rich both miss. Enough is not an amount, it is a decision. The man who needs more will never have enough, no matter how much he gathers. And the man who has decided, he is already rich, but deciding is the hardest thing of all. Picture his world. Endless estates waking under a golden dawn. Rows of vines heavy with fruit. Servants moving through marble halls. From the outside, it was a life without limits. A life every man in Rome dreamed of. And Seneca had it all. But the more he gained, the more clearly he saw a quiet truth. The things he owned came with a price he had not yet counted. Because every gift from an emperor is also a leash. Every coin that flows toward you ties you a little closer to the hand that gives it. Seneca's fortune did not just come from his work. Much of it came from Nero. And a man who can give you everything can also ask for anything. Slowly, Seneca began to feel it. The walls of his golden life closing in. To understand his fortune, you have to understand how it grew. Seneca was not only a philosopher, he was a lender. He loaned money across the empire at interest, the way the great fortunes of Rome were always built. Wax tablets tracked the debts. Provinces owed him. Kings owed him. The quiet man with the pen had become a force in the economy of the world. His money reached places he would never see. Far to the north, across cold seas, lay the island of Britain, newly conquered, restless. And there, some say, Seneca had loaned a fortune. 40 million sesterces, the historian Dio tells us, to people who had not asked to borrow. It seemed, at the time, like just business. It would not stay that way. Then, the story goes, Seneca called the loans back. All at once, the pressure fell on a land already breaking under Roman rule. And Britain rose. A queen named Beata led a revolt that burned cities to the ground. Thousands died. We cannot say how much of it began with one man's death. But the question hangs there. What is the true cost of a fortune? Seneca was a thinker. He must have felt the weight of it. The same hands that wrote about virtue also signed the contracts. The same mind that taught restraint had built one of the largest fortunes in Rome. He lived inside that contradiction every single day. And perhaps that is why he wrote so much about it. A man at peace does not keep explaining himself. Meanwhile, the boy he had raised was changing. Nero was no longer a student. He was an emperor who had tasted power and liked it. The feasts grew longer. The laughter grew crueler. And the steady years Seneca had built began to rot from within. He could see it coming. The boy was becoming something he could not control. And Seneca was standing far too close. There were two of them once, Seneca and Burrus. Two careful men holding a dangerous young emperor between them. They guided, they softened, they restrained. But you cannot restrain a man forever, especially a man who commands the world. Nero was pulling away, and the closer he drifted toward cruelty, the more Seneca's wisdom sounded to the emperor like a cage. And what of the fortune now? It was still there, still vast, but it had begun to feel different in his hands. Gold given by a kind student is a reward. Gold held under a tyrant is a target. Everything Seneca owned now marked him, made him visible, made him useful. And in Nero's Rome, being useful to the emperor was the most dangerous thing of all. A shadow was spreading over Rome. You could not see it, but you could feel it in the silences, in the careful way men chose their words. The golden age Seneca helped build was ending, and he knew, with the clear eyes of Stoic, that he could not simply walk away. Not yet. The man who has everything has the most to lose. Then came the act that changed everything. Nero decided his own mother had to die. Agrippina, the woman who had brought Seneca back from exile, the woman who had handed her son the world. In the year 59, Nero had her killed. The empire held its breath, and every powerful man in Rome understood the message. No one was safe now. No one. After the murder, the emperor needed words. Someone had to explain it to the Senate. Someone had to make a son killing his mother sound like mercy. That task fell to the finest writer in Rome, to Seneca. We do not know what he felt as he wrote it. We only know that he did, and that some chains are not made of iron. They're made of ink. Picture him at his desk that night, the most respected mind in the empire, bending his gift to defend the unforgivable. This was the price of his place. The price of the villas, the gardens, the gold. He had spent his life writing about the free man, and now he understood, more deeply than ever, how few men are truly free. Even the richest one in Rome. Rome learned to smile carefully, to applaud on cue. The city that once admired Seneca now watched him, wondering how long the emperor's old teacher would last. Power is a strange kind of wealth. It looks like freedom from the outside. From the inside, Seneca felt it for what it was. A beautiful room, with the doors quietly locked. And he had begun looking for a way out. He had everything a man could want, and he wanted out. Think about that. The fortune he had chased his whole life had become the very thing he longed to escape. Not because wealth is evil, but because his wealth was tied to a monster. And he finally saw the truth he had written about for years. What you cannot walk away from owns you. He was older now, tired. The cough of his childhood had never fully left him. At night, alone, the most powerful philosopher in Rome must have asked himself a simple question. What was it all for? The gold, the closeness to power, the years spent guiding a boy who had become a killer. He had won every prize Rome could offer, and he had never felt poorer. Over the city, the sky seemed to hang lower. Rome was still magnificent, still gold and marble and noise. But underneath, fear moved like a current. Seneca looked at the empire he had helped to steady and saw how fragile it had always been, built on the moods of one man. And that man, he knew, no longer needed him. The time had come to let go. His fortune had become a paradox. The thing that made him powerful now made him a prisoner. Every estate was a reason for Nero to keep him close. Every coin was a string. So Seneca made a decision that shocked Rome, a decision only a true Stoic could make. He would try to give it all away, the whole fortune, back to the emperor himself. But first he lost his last ally. In the year 62, Burrus died, the other steady hand, the man who had helped him hold Nero back for so long. With Burrus gone, Seneca stood alone beside the throne, exposed, outnumbered by men who whispered against him. He could feel the ground shifting, and he knew he had very little time to act. So he went to Nero, and he said something almost no rich man in history has ever said. Take it back. All of it. The villas, the gardens, the gold you gave me. I am old. I do not need it anymore. Let me retire in peace and keep only my thoughts. It was, perhaps, the bravest thing he ever did, to offer up everything, on purpose. Nero listened, and Nero smiled, and Nero said no. He praised his old teacher with warm and empty words. He refused the gift, because a tyrant does not let you leave. To release Seneca, if you're still with me here, and I'm glad you are, take a moment to subscribe. There's more of this path ahead, and I'd like to walk it with you. Now, back to Seneca. To take back the gold would look like guilt. So Nero kept him close and kept him rich. And in that moment, both men understood. The fortune was now a trap with no key. So the wealth remained, untouched, unwanted, sitting around Seneca like a weight he could not put down. He had spent his youth gaining it, and now he could not even give it away. There is a lesson hiding here, but Seneca would never say it aloud. He would only live it, quietly, in the years he had left. He began to pull away from the world. He stopped coming to court. He pleaded illness, then age. Slowly, he disappeared from public life. The most powerful advisor in Rome chose silence. He retreated to his estates and to something he had neglected for too long. His own mind, a student of power, became, once more, a student of wisdom. There was still one great work left in him. In these final years, he wrote letters. Long, honest letters to a friend named Lucilius. No politics, no flatty, just one aging man trying to make sense of a life. How to live, how to lose, how to die well. These letters would outlast the gold, the villas, the emperor, and Rome itself. They're still read today, 2,000 years later. Something had changed in him. The fear was loosening its grip. A man who has decided to need nothing is very hard to threaten. Seneca had spent his whole life circling one idea, and now, at the end, he was finally living it. He owned little that mattered to him anymore, and for the first time, perhaps, he was free. But Nero had not forgotten him. His villa stood quiet in the morning light. Olive trees, soft wind, the simple rhythm of an ordinary day. After a lifetime in the storm of power, Seneca had found a kind of peace. He did not know how little of it was left. Far away, in Rome, a plot was forming, and his name was about to be spoken inside it. In the year 65, a group of Romans decided Nero had to die. A conspiracy, a plan to free Rome from its emperor. It failed, and as the arrests began, the torture, the desperate names traded for mercy, one name surfaced that Nero had been waiting for. Seneca. There was little proof he was truly part of it, but proof was never the point. An order was sealed and sent. A small group of soldiers set out towards Seneca's villa, carrying the emperor's wish. Not a trial, not a chance to speak, just a command. The old philosopher was to take his own life. After everything, this was Nero's final gift to the man who had raised him. A choice that was not a choice at all. The soldiers arrived as Seneca was sitting down to dinner with his wife and friends. The officer delivered the order. The room fell silent. His friends began to weep, but Seneca did not. He had spent decades preparing for exactly this moment. Every letter, every lesson, every word about death had been rehearsal. And now the day had come. He was ready. He turned to his weeping friends, and his voice was steady. Where, he asked them, is all your philosophy now? Where are the lessons we shared for facing what we always knew would come? He did not beg. He did not rage. He had taught that a good death is the final test of a life, and he intended to pass it, calmly, in front of them all. Then he opened his veins. But Seneca was old, and his body was thin and slow. The blood would not come fast enough. The death he had accepted would not arrive quickly. So he took poison, and still it did not work. In the end, they carried him into a warm bath, and the steam closed gently over him. He went at last, quietly, the way he had always hoped to. It is said that as he died, he kept speaking, calm to the very end. He left his final words to his friends and his life's work to the world. He could not take a single coin with him, not one villa, not 1 acre of all he had gathered. He left exactly as he had taught, with nothing in his hands and everything in his name. The room grew still. The richest philosopher in the history of Rome was gone, and all the gold he had spent a lifetime gathering. The estates, the vineyards, the fortune that tied him to an emperor. None of it had saved him. None of it had ever truly been his. In the end, it stayed behind, as it always does. Only his words walked out the door. His wife had tried to die beside him. Nero ordered her saved. She lived on for years, pale and quiet, a living memory of the man. And across Rome, those who had feared Seneca, envied him, whispered against him, were left with a strange and uncomfortable truth. The man had met death better than any of them had met life. Empires fall. Nero himself would be dead within 3 years, abandoned and alone. The villas crumbled. The fortune scattered. The gold returned to the dark, where gold always goes. But the letters remained. The quiet thoughts of a sick boy from Spain who became the richest man in Rome and spent his last years learning how little that meant. So here is where we leave him. A single candle in the dark. A man who had everything, writing about the one thing wealth could never buy. He never told his readers what to feel. He simply showed them his life and trusted them to understand. So we will do the same. We will let the silence do the rest. If something here stayed with you, tell me below. Which idea will you carry? If this is the kind of story you want more of, subscribe and walk this path with us. Our journey through the Stoics has only just begun. I'll see you in the next one.